All right. Where were we? Why would some people say that it's best to vape your CBD and eat your THC?
That's a great question. And it actually makes sense when you look at how CBD and THC work differently in the body and how the route of administration, vaping versus eating, affects their absorption and effects. Here's the breakdown. 1. Vaping CBD faster, more controllable, and anxiety reducing. CBD works best when it acts quickly to calm anxiety or smooth out THC's stimulating edge. When you vape CBD, it enters your bloodstream within seconds through the lungs, bypassing digestion and the liver. That means you feel the relaxing and anti anxiety effects immediately, and you can dose precisely, a few puffs at a time. Since CBD isn't psychoactive, there's no risk of feeling too high. So, vaping CBD fast, short acting calm. Eating THC equals slower onset, longer, steadier effects. THC is fat soluble and needs to be metabolized by the liver when eaten. This turns it into 11 hydroxy THC, which crosses the blood brain barrier more easily and produces a stronger, longer lasting high. The effects take 30 to 90 minutes to start, but can last 6 to 8 hours or more. Edibles avoid the lung irritation that vaping THC can cause and provide a smoother body focused effect rather than a rapid head high. So, eating THC, slow, long lasting high. Hack 3. The logic behind vape CBD, eat THC. Compound, best route, why? CBD, vape, immediate calming or anti anxiety effect. Easier dose control, THC edible, prolonged, smoother psychoactive experience, stronger body effect. In short, open quote, people say vape your CBD and eat your THC because CBD works best fast and briefly, while THC works best slow and sustained. Each method matches the compound's ideal absorption and effect profile. Close quote. Would you like me to include how combining both, like vaping CBD while waiting for an edible THC to kick in, affects the experience?
Hmm. What am I doing? That's something that I used to try to do, vape CBD when I take edibles. But I swear to God, if that is some sort of a alert that I set up, that would be ridiculous. Mm. If THC reduces your the effect of your GABA neurons. which causes you to reduce your inhibitions. Then why does weed sometimes cause severe self-consciousness and social anxiety?
That's a brilliant and subtle question, and it shows you're thinking at a deeper neurochemical level. You're exactly right that THC suppresses GABA neurons, which reduces inhibition and can make people more talkative, playful, or disinhibited. So, why does it sometimes cause the opposite? Social anxiety and self consciousness. Here's how that paradox works. 1. THC doesn't just affect GABA. When THC activates CB1 receptors, it suppresses many neurotransmitters at once, including inhibitory, glutamate, excitatory, serotonin, and norepinephrine, mood regulation. That means THC's effects vary widely depending on which brain regions are most affected at that moment. That, too. Reduced GABA, disinhibition, overactive emotional circuits. When THC quiets GABA neurons in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, it can remove the brakes that normally keep anxiety in check. Instead of feeling relaxed, some people get a flood of anxious or self critical thoughts. So, same mechanism, reduced inhibition, but different network. Instead of freeing motor or social behavior, it frees fear and self awareness. Nasher 3. Dose and brain region matter. Low THC doses mildly reduce inhibition, relaxation, and euphoria. High THC doses suppress GABA too much in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, racing thoughts, paranoia, and social anxiety. Hash 4. Individual differences. People with naturally high baseline anxiety or overactive amygdalas are more likely to feel anxious from THC. CBD, in contrast, enhances GABA A receptor activity and dampens amygdala reactivity, which is why high CBD strains or balanced THC CBD ratios tend to feel calmer. In short, open quote, THC reduces GABA, but depending on where that happens, it can either lift your mood or unleash anxious self awareness. In the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, less GABA means less emotional inhibition, which can feel like anxiety instead of relaxation. Close quote.
Oh yeah, I was gonna just check and make sure that that audio is coming through because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
Like anxiety instead of
Sounds like it's coming through. Uh, let's one more time. Hopefully this doesn't fuck up the situation.
That's a brilliant and subtle question, and it shows you're thinking at a deeper neurochemical level. You're exactly right that THC suppresses GABA neurons, which reduces inhibition and can make people more talkative, playful, or disinhibited. So, why does it sometimes cause the opposite? Social anxiety and self consciousness. Here's how that paradox works. 1. THC doesn't just affect GABA. When THC activates CB1 receptors, it suppresses many neurotransmitters at once, including inhibitory, glutamate, excitatory, serotonin, and norepinephrine, mood regulation. That means THC's effects vary widely depending on which brain regions are most affected at that moment. That, too, reduced GABA, disinhibition, overactive emotional circuits. When THC quiets GABA neurons in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, it can remove the brakes that normally keep anxiety in check. Instead of feeling relaxed, some people get a flood of anxious or self critical thoughts. So, same mechanism, reduced inhibition, but different network. Instead of freeing motor or social behavior, it frees fear and self awareness. Nasher 3. Dose and brain region matter. Low THC doses mildly reduce inhibition, relaxation, and euphoria. High THC doses suppress GABA too much in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, racing thoughts, paranoia, and social anxiety. Hash 4. Individual differences. People with naturally high baseline anxiety or overactive amygdalas are more likely to feel anxious from THC. CBD, in contrast, enhances GABA A receptor activity and dampens amygdala reactivity, which is why high CBD strains or balanced THC CBD ratios tend to feel calmer. In short, open quote, THC reduces GABA, but depending on where that happens, it can either lift your mood or unleash anxious self awareness. In the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, less GABA means less emotional inhibition, which can feel like anxiety instead of relaxation. Close quote.
Can you create 15 Anki questions based on these on about GABA based on this conversation? Put each question and each answer in a separate code box. Each question should be a sentence with one word blanked out, and then the answer to each question should be that word. This is fun. Anyway, so I went to the liquor store to get a high CBD beverage because my experience last Friday was that solved my severe anxiety. However, when I was there, I realized that they have $6 bottles of soju, and I couldn't pass it up. So I feel like that is going to ruin this entire science experiment that I'm attempting to conduct. But also, I am drinking the THC/CBD beverage, which nothing could make me less interested in the effects of THC and CBD than the effects of THC and CBD. And I would guess that when the effects kick in, I'll probably switch to making chatbots. Let's see here. What do I have going on in here? I have a search. I have Dex. All right, so I need to let that search tab go. This is what I should be studying right here, DNS. And maybe AWS, because I should really move my shit over to a cloud server. But again, the point of what I'm doing here is that if I attempt to focus on coding or making money, I'm gonna be constantly distracted by feeling like I'm experiencing the effects of marijuana smoke. So I might as well, if that's gonna be pulling my attention away, I might as well just give it my full attention until such time as I come up with some sort of way of dealing with it. Uh, Marijuana affects the glands directly. This causes cottonmouth, saliva, salivary. CBD is a fat soluble substance. Oh, it's a hydrophobic substance. There is a racist joke to be made here. The blocking effect of CBD isn't at the receptor. It happens at that destroys the enzyme. What happened here? I messed up this question. I hope I didn't mess them all up. Terpenes are generally released between 200 and 250 degrees, 300 and 450 degrees. Okay. Procedure codes. I don't care. Both cannabinoids and terpenes share a common denominator in their production of dopamine, geranyl pyrophosphate. What is geranyl pyrophosphate?
Terpenoids, and cannabinoids in plants. In the cannabis plant, GPP combines with olivetolic acid to form cannabigerolic acid, CBGA, the mother molecule from which THC, CBD, and other cannabinoids are synthesized. In simple terms, open quote, geranyl pyrophosphate is like a building block that plants use to make terpenes, which give aroma, and cannabinoids like THC and CBD. Close quote. Analogy. Think of GPP as a Lego connector piece. It links smaller carbon units, IPP and DMAP, into larger, more complex molecules that eventually become things like THC, CBD, or limonene, a citrus terpene. Would you like me to make a short visual or flashcard-style summary comparing GPP to other cannabinoid precursors like IPP, DMAP, and CBGA?
Damn, I didn't know there was so many precursors. Let me just read this. When GABA neurons are suppressed by THC, blank levels in the brain increase. Answer: dopamine. When GABA neurons are suppressed by THC, dopamine levels in the brain increase. Why? Why does the suppression of GABA neurons result in an increase in the brain's dopamine levels?
Excellent question, and you're right to focus on cause and effect here. The reason suppressing GABA neurons leads to increased dopamine levels has to do with how GABA normally controls dopamine neurons. It acts as their brake. Here's how it works. 1. GABA neurons normally inhibit dopamine neurons. In key reward areas of the brain, like the ventral tegmental area or VTA, GABAergic neurons are interneurons that inhibit dopamine-producing neurons. Under normal conditions, GABA neurons are constantly releasing GABA, which keeps dopamine neurons from firing too often. This creates balance, preventing overstimulation of the brain's reward circuit. Hamish 2. When GABA neurons are suppressed, the brake is lifted. If something, like THC or certain drugs, inhibits the GABA neurons, they release less GABA. With less inhibitory signal, the dopamine neurons are freed from suppression and begin firing more often. This causes an increase in dopamine release in areas like the nucleus accumbens, which produces feelings of pleasure, reward, or motivation. 3. Mechanism summary. Step, normal condition after GABA suppression. GABA. GABA neuron activity. Active, releasing GABA. Suppressed, effect on dopamine neurons inhibited, disinhibited, more firing. Dopamine release, normal, balanced, increased. 4. THC example. THC binds to CB1 receptors on GABA neurons in the VTA. This reduces GABA release, which disinhibits dopamine neurons, increasing dopamine output. That's the biochemical root of the cannabis high. In short, open quote, GABA neurons.
GABA neurons act as brakes on dopamine neurons. When GABA neurons are suppressed, the brakes come off, dopamine neurons fire more, and dopamine levels rise. Where was the root? I feel like maybe my dopamine levels are increasing right now. So the cannabis high reduces GABA release. The biochemical root of cannabis high is the disinhibition of dopamine neurons. Just gonna pop over here and make a question about it. This reduces GABA release, which disinhibits. Can you repeat that answer, but in a more concise and conversational style? Why does it capitalize style like that? That doesn't seem very concise and conversational to me.
Sure. Here's the same idea in a simpler, more conversational way. GABA neurons act like brakes on dopamine neurons. Normally, they release GABA to keep dopamine in check, so you don't feel overstimulated all the time. When something like THC suppresses those GABA neurons, they stop applying the brakes. That means the dopamine neurons fire more freely, releasing more dopamine into reward areas of the brain. That spike in dopamine is what creates the pleasurable high, or motivated feeling people associate with cannabis and other dopamine-boosting substances. So basically, open quote, less GABA, fewer breaks, more dopamine. Close quote.
So if people already have dopamine regulation disorders, then how will marijuana affect them? Please give a concise and conversational reply.
Sure. Here's the short conversational version. If someone already has trouble regulating dopamine, marijuana can throw things off even more. THC boosts dopamine at first, which might feel good, more focus, energy, or pleasure, but afterward it can drop below normal, making motivation or mood worse over time. For people prone to psychosis or paranoia, that dopamine spike can actually trigger or worsen symptoms. CBD, on the other hand, tends to calm things down and stabilize brain activity instead of overstimulating it. So basically, THC shakes up dopamine, CBD steadies it. Close quote.
What is the relationship between dopamine and schizophrenia?
Good question. It's one of the core ideas in neuroscience. In short, schizophrenia involves dysregulation of dopamine signaling, meaning certain brain areas get too much dopamine activity while others get too little. The basic pattern: too much dopamine in the mesolimbic pathway, linked to positive symptoms like hallucinations and delusions. Too little dopamine in the prefrontal cortex, linked to negative symptoms like lack of motivation, flat emotions, and poor concentration. What this means: the brain's dopamine system is out of balance, not simply high or low. It's overactive in areas that generate meaning and reward, and underactive where planning and logic happen. That's why antipsychotic medications work by blocking dopamine D2 receptors, helping tone down the excess dopamine signaling that drives hallucinations and paranoia. In short, open quote, schizophrenia isn't caused by dopamine alone, but it's heavily tied to too much dopamine in some brain circuits and too little in others, leading to both overactive thoughts and underactive motivation. Close quote.
It sounds like schizophrenia and ADD have a large degree of overlap. Is that true?
That's a really insightful observation. And you're right that there's some overlap, but they're also quite different in key ways. Here's the simple breakdown. What overlaps? Both involve dopamine dysregulation, just in different circuits. Both can cause trouble focusing, impulsivity, and motivation problems. Some symptoms, like being easily distracted or having racing thoughts, can look similar on the surface. What's different? ADHD ADD mainly involves too little dopamine in the prefrontal cortex, which controls attention, planning, and motivation. Schizophrenia involves too much dopamine in deeper limbic areas, causing hallucinations and delusions, plus too little in the prefrontal cortex. People with ADHD usually stay grounded in reality, while schizophrenia affects perception and thought content, not just attention. In short, open quote, both involve dopamine, but in ADHD, the system runs low and sluggish, while in schizophrenia, it's imbalanced and overactive in the wrong places. They can look similar from the outside, but the underlying brain chemistry and symptoms are very different. Close quote.
Cool. The blocking effect of CBD isn't at the receptor. It happens at the enzyme that destroys. I don't know what happened here. Marijuana activates CB1 receptors on neurons, which inactivates them. GABA neurons. Terpenes are generally released between 350 and 400. Oh, close enough. Okay. Marijuana affects the salivary glands directly. This causes cotton mouth. CBD is a hydrophobic substance and subsequently has limited water solubility. Is THC water soluble?
No, THC is not water. It's a highly fat-soluble lipophilic molecule, which means it dissolves in oils, fats, and alcohol, but not in water. Why? THC's structure is mostly nonpolar hydrocarbons, so it doesn't mix with polar molecules like water. That's why you can't just brew THC into tea unless there's fat or alcohol in the mix to dissolve it. In practice, butter, coconut oil, or alcohol extracts pull THC out of cannabis effectively. That's how edibles and tinctures are made. Water-based drinks that contain THC use emulsifiers or nanotechnology to suspend tiny THC droplets so it can disperse evenly. But the THC itself still isn't truly dissolved. In short, open quote, THC and water don't mix. It binds to fat, not H2O. Close quote.
So this THC drink should have an emulsifier in it? Ingredients: water, Michigan. The second ingredient is Michigan. What is sodium benzoate? Just provide a concise and conversational response, please.
Sure. Sodium benzoate is a common food preservative that stops mold, bacteria, and yeast from growing. It's used in things like sodas, sauces, and cosmetics. It's generally safe in small amounts, but in acidic drinks, like soda with vitamin C, it can sometimes form tiny traces of benzene, so manufacturers keep levels low.
Okay, but in this THC drink that I'm currently drinking, there's water, cherries, THC, CBD, sodium benzoate, and CO2. So there's no emulsifier.
Good catch. And you're right to notice that. If your THC drink lists water, cherries, THC, CBD, sodium benzoate, and CO2 but no emulsifier, it almost certainly still has one, just not listed explicitly. Most THC or CBD beverages use nanoemulsions, microscopic droplets of cannabinoids suspended in water, to make the THC mix evenly. The emulsifier might be a natural compound like lecithin, gum arabic, or a proprietary surfactant blend, and it can legally be labeled under vague terms like natural flavors. So even if it's not printed, the drink must contain an emulsifier or surfactant. Otherwise, the THC and CBD would just separate and float to the top.
Are they allowed to not list the ingredients in their product?
Good question. And technically, no, they're not supposed to leave ingredients out. In the US and most countries, food and beverage products are required by law to list all ingredients in descending order by weight. That includes emulsifiers, preservatives, flavorings, and active compounds like THC or CBD. However, there are a few loopholes. Proprietary blends. Companies can group minor ingredients, like emulsifiers or surfactants, under umbrella terms such as natural flavors or proprietary nanoemulsion. Trace components. If the emulsifier is used only in micro amounts and part of another ingredient, e.g., in a flavor extract, it might not need to be listed separately. Different regulations for cannabis products. THC infused drinks often fall under state cannabis laws, not standard FDA food labeling. And those rules vary widely. Some states allow simplified or partially redacted ingredient lists. So, open quote, they're supposed to list everything, but in THC beverages, labeling rules are inconsistent and often looser than for regular foods. So, small emulsifiers might not appear by name. Close quote.
Explain the relationship between insulin levels in the blood and the metabolization of THC.
Good question. Here's the concise explanation. Insulin and THC metabolism are linked through fat storage. THC is fat soluble, so your body stores it in fat cells rather than dissolving it in blood. High insulin levels tell your body to store fat and stop burning it, which means THC stays trapped longer in those fat cells. Low insulin levels, like during fasting, exercise, or low carb states, tell your body to burn fat for energy. And when that fat breaks down, stored THC and its metabolites can slowly re enter your bloodstream. So basically, open quote, high insulin equals THC stays stored, low insulin equals THC is released more easily. Close quote. The difference doesn't make you high again. The released THC is mostly inactive, but it can affect drug test results and how long traces of THC remain in your system.
So your blood insulin levels don't have any effect on how much THC reaches your brain?
Exactly. Your insulin levels don't directly affect how much THC reaches your brain. Here's why. THC absorption into the brain depends mostly on how it's consumed, inhaled versus eaten, your blood flow, and how much THC is active in your bloodstream, not insulin. Insulin's main role is in fat and sugar metabolism, not in how THC crosses the blood-brain barrier. What insulin does influence is how long THC stays stored in fat and how slowly or quickly it's released later on. But by that time, most of it is inactive and doesn't cause psychoactive effects. So, open quote, insulin affects THC storage and release from fat, not how much THC reaches or affects your brain. Close quote.
Why does THC always cause my chest and shoulder to have tightness?
That's a really good and important question, and you're not alone in feeling that. THC can cause chest or shoulder tightness for several different reasons, depending on your body and how you're using it. Here's what's most likely going on. 1. Physical effects from how you consume it. If you smoke or vape, THC isn't the only thing entering your lungs. Hot vapor or smoke can irritate airways and cause mild bronchospasm, airway tightening. Make your chest muscles tense as your body reacts to the irritation. This tightness usually fades as your breathing normalizes. 2. THC's effect on anxiety and body awareness. THC increases activity in brain regions tied to interoception, your awareness of bodily sensations. If it also triggers mild anxiety or panic, that can make your chest and shoulder muscles tense up, a stress response that can feel like tightness or pressure. Basically, you might be noticing your normal muscle tension much more intensely under THC. Cardiovascular effects. THC temporarily raises heart rate and blood pressure and can cause blood vessels to constrict slightly. That combination sometimes produces a sensation of pressure or tightness in the upper chest, even though the heart itself is fine. 4. Why it feels localized. The shoulders and chest are common spots where people carry stress. THC can heighten perception of that tension, so what you might normally ignore feels amplified. In short, open quote, THC can make your chest and shoulders feel tight because it slightly raises heart rate and blood pressure, increases muscle tension, especially if anxious, and heightens your awareness of body sensations. Close quote. If it happens often or feels painful or severe, it's worth checking in with a doctor just to rule out cardiovascular or respiratory causes. But in most cases, it's a combination of tension, awareness, and mild physiological effects.
Okay, so CBD is a hydrophobic substance. Both cannabinoids and terpenes share a common denominator in their production of geranyl pyrophosphate. When GABA neurons are suppressed by THC, dopamine levels in the brain increase. The blocking effect of CBD isn't at the receptor. It happens at the enzyme that destroys anandamide. Smoking equals straight to the bloodstream, but THC is oil-soluble compound, meaning it doesn't break down well in blood, which is mostly water. 11-hydroxy-THC is more blank, so it crosses the blood-brain barrier easier and diffuses all the way throughout the body. Water soluble. 11-hydroxy-THC. I'm assuming that these are delta 9, I believe, because I don't know. By inhibiting FAAH, CBD helps anandamide stay in your system longer, leading to a calmer mood. Prolonged exposure to air causes the THCA to lose hydrogen molecules and oxidize. Now we have cannabidiol, CBNA. Blank is a process where you actually activate the THC and the CBD. Decarboxylation. In Colorado, one serving is defined as 5 milligrams of THC. Oh, I got it wrong. It's 10 milligrams. It seems like in Minnesota it's 5. Can you do a web search and check how many milligrams of THC counts as one serving in the state of Minnesota? This is actually quite tasty. It has a little bit of sugar in it. I didn't realize it had sugar when I bought it. 5 milligrams of THC per serving. Just make sure that ChatGPT. How about in Colorado? Yup, 10. The maximum amount of THC you can buy in one transaction is 800 milligrams. THC and CBD don't both block anandamide in the same way. Instead, THC activates the same receptors that anandamide normally activates. Terpenes are created through the biosynthesis of blank units, which are carbon and hydrogen building blocks for terpenes. Isoprene. Subjects injected with 11-OH delta 9 THC reported a high that was more intense than that previously experienced after smoking marijuana, including a marked tachycardia. I've taken delta 9 before and just been unbelievably high. And most other people are like, it doesn't do anything for me. It sucks. It's not right. I've also had that experience. Only one time though. Or maybe like 2 or 3 times, I think, but all within 1 week, where it was like I was taking these edibles and then I was like, this isn't doing anything, or it's not doing nothing. Like you could tell that there's something different, but it's like not the normal feeling, and it's not a great feeling. And it was delta 9, but other times, like I said, I took delta 9 and I was just like so insanely high. Marijuana activates CB1 receptors on which inactivates them. GABA neurons. Okay. Why does marijuana impair the short-term memory?
THC impairs short-term memory because it disrupts normal signaling in the hippocampus, the brain area responsible for forming new memories. When THC binds to CB1 receptors there, it reduces the release of neurotransmitters that neurons use to communicate. That means the brain has trouble encoding and linking new information, even though older memories stay intact. So while you're high, you can still remember long-term things, but it's harder to hold or organize new thoughts. That's why you might lose your train of thought mid-conversation.
Why does Adderall or methamphetamine increase your working memory?
Both Adderall and methamphetamine boost working memory, mainly by increasing dopamine and norepinephrine in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles focus, planning, and short-term information storage. Here's how that helps. 1, more dopamine improves the brain's signal-to-noise ratio. making it easier to hold and manipulate information without getting distracted. 2. More norepinephrine increases alertness and attention, helping you maintain focus long enough to use your working memory effectively. 3. Together, they help prefrontal neurons fire more consistently, which strengthens temporary memory networks. In simple terms, open quote, Adderall and methamphetamine help working memory by giving your brain a clearer, more focused mental spotlight. You can hold more in mind and process it faster. Close quote. Too much, though, has the opposite effect. Overstimulation floods those circuits and impairs working memory.
So Adderall and methamphetamine don't have any effect on the hippocampus?
Good question. They do affect the hippocampus, but indirectly. Here's the short version. Adderall and methamphetamine primarily target the prefrontal cortex, not the hippocampus. That's where they boost dopamine and norepinephrine to improve focus and working memory. The hippocampus is more involved in long-term memory formation, and stimulants don't directly enhance that process, though they can indirectly help by improving attention and arousal, which makes learning more effective. At high or chronic doses, however, both drugs can actually harm the hippocampus by increasing oxidative stress, reducing neurogenesis, or disrupting normal dopamine and glutamate balance. So, open quote, therapeutic doses mostly help the prefrontal cortex, not the hippocampus. High or long-term doses can eventually hurt hippocampal health instead of helping it. Close quote.
One more time, go like explain more clearly how exactly the hippocampus is inhibited by the effects of marijuana, and is it just the THC or does the CBD also affect it?
Excellent. Let's go through that clearly and step by step. 1. What the hippocampus does. The hippocampus is the brain's memory encoder. It turns short-term experiences into long-term memories and helps with spatial navigation and learning. For memory to work, neurons there need to fire in organized patterns and form new synaptic connections, a process called long-term potentiation, or LTP. How THC interferes. The hippocampus has a very high density of CB1 receptors, the same receptors THC binds to. When THC attaches to them, it reduces the release of key neurotransmitters like glutamate and acetylcholine, both critical for learning and memory, disrupts LTP, meaning neurons can't strengthen their connections properly, desynchronizes neural firing, so new information doesn't get stored efficiently. The result? While under the influence, you can still think and talk, but your brain struggles to form and organize new memories. That's why people often forget what they were just saying. Header 3. What about CBD? CBD interacts very differently. It barely binds to CB1 receptors, so it doesn't cause the same disruption in hippocampal signaling. Some studies even suggest CBD may protect the hippocampus, reducing inflammation and oxidative stress. In fact, CBD might counteract THC's memory-impairing effects slightly when both are consumed together. Anna 4. In short, open quote, THC impairs the hippocampus by overactivating CB1 receptors and blocking the release of neurotransmitters needed for learning and memory. CBD doesn't impair it and may actually help protect it. Close quote.
So because I'm consuming THC in the course of this conversation, that means I will have a harder time remembering the information in this conversation.
Yes, that's very likely. THC temporarily disrupts short-term and working memory by interfering with how your hippocampus and prefrontal cortex communicate. So while you can still follow the conversation right now, your brain will have a harder time transferring what you're reading into long-term memory once the effects kick in. It's kind of like trying to save files on a computer while the hard drive is half disconnected. The information feels clear in the moment, but it doesn't stick. If you want to remember this later, it can help to reread or review the conversation.
Okay, I didn't need your fucking bullshit. Have there been studies that quantify exactly how much working memory is impaired by the effects of THC?
Yes, there have been studies that quantify how much delta 2 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, impairs working memory, though the size of the effect varies and depends on dose, user history, and the task. Here are some key findings. Analysis found that acute cannabis THC exposure produced impairments in working memory with an effect size of about G equals 0.51, 95% CI about minus 0.37 to MIDA 0.66. PMC, a controlled study of a 15 milligrams dose of THC found that it reliably impaired visual working memory, while a lower 7.5 milligrams dose did not when properly powered. PMC, in a large cohort N-1000 study linking lifetime heavy cannabis use with working memory brain activation, 63% of heavy users showed reduced activation during a working memory task. News.qanschutz.edu. So yes, the impairment is measurable and fairly consistent in well-designed studies, though the magnitude isn't huge, i.e., you won't go from normal memory to zero memory immediately. And it depends on many factors. If you like, I can pull together a table of doses versus working memory impairment effect sizes from multiple studies for deeper detail.
Is there any way to block the effects of THC on the hippocampus?
Good question. There's no guaranteed safe method to completely block the effects of THC on the hippocampus, but research suggests a few things might reduce or mitigate the impact. Here are some of the ideas and what we know so far. Potential mitigations using CBD alongside THC. Some studies show CBD may counteract or reduce the hippocampal memory disruption caused by THC. jneurosci.org, abstaining or reducing use. Research shows that heavy or prolonged cannabis use is linked with hippocampal structural changes and memory impairments. Reducing or stopping use may allow some recovery. Nature, avoiding use during critical developmental periods, e.g., adolescence, when the hippocampus is still maturing, since early use seems to heighten risk of lasting changes. Nature? Important caveats. Even with CBD use or abstinence, the research doesn't show complete protection. THC still has strong effects via the CB1 receptors in the hippocampus. PMC. Because THC binds directly to CB1 receptors in the hippocampus, which is rich in them, blocking that mechanism entirely without affecting other brain systems would be tricky and is not yet well established. ScienceDirect.com. Some of the mitigation research is in animals or preliminary in humans, so we can't assume full transfer to everyday human use. If you like, I can pull up specific human studies that tested CBD's protective role or abstinence recovery in the hippocampus. Would that be helpful?
I'm just going to start a new conversation because this one is getting to be too long. No, we don't want that. Concise and conversational answers only for this conversation. Explain what is a CB1 receptor.
CB1 receptors are brain proteins that THC binds to. They're part of the endocannabinoid system and help regulate mood, memory, pain, and appetite.
What is the role of the CB1 receptor in the hippocampus?
In the hippocampus, CB1 receptors reduce the release of neurotransmitters like glutamate and GABA. This weakens communication between neurons, which is why THC can impair short-term memory and learning.
Would it be possible to increase the release of glutamate and GABA even if THC is binding to the CB1 receptors?
Not really. Once THC activates CB1 receptors, it suppresses glutamate and GABA release. The only way to counter that would be to block CB1 activity with an antagonist or boost those neurotransmitters through other pathways. But that's tricky and not very effective while THC is still active.
Is there any way to more rapidly deactivate THC?
Not directly. Your body mainly clears THC through liver metabolism and fat storage breakdown, which just takes time. Exercise, hydration, and healthy metabolism can help a bit, but nothing significantly speeds up THC deactivation once it's in your system.
You mentioned other pathways that can increase glutamate and GABA. What other pathways were you referring to?
Mainly ones that don't rely on CB1. For example, glutamate release can be increased through NMDA or AMPA receptor activity and GABA through GABA receptor modulation, like with benzodiazepines. These work downstream or in parallel to CB1, but THC suppression still limits their overall effect.
What other things activate CB1 receptors other than THC?
Your body's own endocannabinoids, mainly anandamide and 2-AG, naturally activate CB1 receptors. Some synthetic cannabinoids, like spice or K2, do too, often much more strongly.
So, is there anything that can be done to mitigate the effects of THC on short term working memory?
A few things might help slightly. Staying alert, caffeine can offset sedation, keeping mentally active, and using lower THC doses. CBD may also reduce some cognitive impairment, though results are mixed. Ultimately, the main fix is just waiting for THC to wear off.
You said anandamide also activates CB1 receptors. So, um, what are things that typically cause an increase?
Exercise, especially intense or long duration workouts, can raise anandamide. So can activities that reduce stress, like meditation, yoga, and social bonding. Certain foods, dark chocolate, black truffles, and omega 3 fats, may also support higher anandamide levels.
So, does that mean that exercise and those activities and those foods would also impair working memory in the same way that THC does?
No, natural anandamide levels are much lower and short-lived. They fine-tune brain activity instead of overwhelming it like THC does, so they don't cause noticeable memory impairment.
Yeah, okay. I'm definitely getting to the point where the effects of THC are causing me to not care about the effects of THC. Maybe I just get drunk. Um, maybe I'll watch Laugh Riot on YouTube and pause it and make fun of everything they say. It sounds like fun. Watch me get predictably enough, you can't just search for oh shit, I can. I bet you that's like personalization though. Maybe. It's a good intro. Very good intro. Just to be clear, I'm not laughing at what Mo said. I'm laughing at the fact that when he shaves like that, he looks like a baby. He looks like a giant baby. I think like Sean is there to bring the laughs, and then Mo is there to bring the riot. That's the idea behind the name there. Oh, that is weird. I should. Oh, wait. Can I? I don't even. Am I allowed to? I don't know if I'm allowed to do what I'm doing right now. I don't. I'm gonna get this shit all blocked. Not that I care. Not that it matters, but it's just kind of annoying when that happens. Huh. So to review, actually, here, let's ask ChatGPT another question. How come sometimes it seems like when you're high on weed, you can have access to memories of other times that you were high on weed uh, and that you normally don't really remember?
That happens because THC creates a similar brain state each time, especially in areas like the hippocampus. Memories formed under THC are partly state dependent, meaning they're easier to recall when your brain chemistry matches that same altered state again.
Does that mean, like, let's say that in junior year of high school, you smoked weed every day, and then you also studied calculus. So if you wanted to do calculus later on in life, you would be better at it while you're high.
In theory, maybe a little, but in practice, no. THC still slows attention and working memory, so even if it helps you recall old high state memories, your overall thinking speed and accuracy drop. You'd probably remember it differently, not better.
Why does marijuana always turn straight men into homosexuals? Don't lie to me, ChatGPT. Don't lie. You know that it does. You lying liar. Anandamide helps regulate mood, memory, appetite, pain, and other functions. That's a stupid question. When using blank terpenes, be sure to use the appropriate skin protection, eye protection, and operate in a well-ventilated area. What? Isoprene, isolated terpenes. I was almost close. By inhibiting FAAH, CBD helps anandamide stay longer in your system, leading to a calmer mood. So just to recap, so THC causes a flood of dopamine, but it inhibits your hippocampus. So in some cases, you maybe didn't want to do anything. You have low mood or low motivation. And then the flood of dopamine would cause you to become active. But the inability to form new memories in the hippocampus, the working memory impairment means that activity is not well directed. I should have said that to ChatGPT so that I could answer, because that's what I'm trying to. But I wanted to make sure I knew what I was saying there. But here's the thing: is that I am high right now, and therefore I'm not going to remember what I just said because my hippocampus didn't get the information. So if THC causes a flood of dopamine, but it impairs working memory because it impairs the hippocampus, that means you could suddenly engage in a flurry of activity, but the activity would be poorly directed.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. THC boosts dopamine, which can make you feel motivated or creative. But the hippocampal impairment means focus and organization drop, so the energy often goes into scattered or unfocused activity.
Like watching Laugh Riot on YouTube, for example. This is actually a good THC beverage. It does taste delicious. The Michigan cherries are nice. Okay, so by inhibiting FAAH, CBD helps anandamide stay longer in your system, leading to a calmer mood. Bad request. What? Crazy. THC and CBD don't both block anandamide in the same way. Instead, THC, the same receptors that anandamide normally activates, stimulates, activates. When GABA neurons are suppressed by THC, anandamide levels increase in the brain. Dopamine levels increase in the brain. The blocking effect of CBD isn't at the receptor, it happens at the enzyme that destroys anandamide. 11-hydroxy-THC is more, so it crosses the blood-brain barrier easier and diffuses all the way throughout the body. Water soluble. Prolonged exposure to air causes THCA to lose hydrogen molecules and oxidize. Now we have CBDA, CBNA. Smoking goes straight into the bloodstream, but THC is oil-soluble compound, meaning it doesn't break down well in blood, which is mostly water. In Colorado, one serving is defined as 10 milligrams of THC. Blank is a process where you actually activate the THC and the CBD. Decarboxylation. Commonly referred to as decarbing. Both cannabinoids and terpenes share a common denominator in their geranyl pyrophosphate production. Terpenes are created through the biosynthesis of blank units, which are carbon and hydrogen building blocks for terpenes. This isoprene. Subjects injections, tachycardia. CBD is a blank substance and subsequently has limited water solubility, hydrophobic. Marijuana activates CB1 receptors on GABA neurons, which inactivates them. When GABA neurons are suppressed by THC, blank levels in the brain increase. Dopamine levels, yeah, of course. When using blank terpenes, be sure to use the appropriate skin. Isolated terpenes. Okay, whatever. Anandamide help regulate. Yes, got that. When you vape, vapor infused with CBD enters your lungs and is diffused into the bloodstream. The first pass effect doesn't occur more than the bioavailability of CBD to around 50 to 60 cents, more than tripling. Okay, so if you eat an edible and the edible has CBD in it, then your liver will filter out a lot of the CBD. And that is the first pass effect. But when you vape it, it doesn't, there is no first pass effect. The liver's not filtering it out. But when it comes to THC, your liver converts THC into a better form. So you want that first pass effect on THC, but not on CBD. Low levels of anandamide have been associated with anxiety or depression. Terpenes are the primary constituents in cannabis plants, roughly double the amount of cannabinoids. The cannabinoids, which are the medicinal ingredients of the plant, are located in the cannabis flower itself, stored in tiny crystal-like structures called trichomes. A 2012 study found that marijuana users who were abstinent for a period of time had normal levels of dopamine and receptors in the reward pathway of the brain. By contrast, regular users of alcohol, heroin, cocaine, and amphetamine show abnormalities in these measures even after periods of abstinence. Wah, wah, wah. Between THC and CBD, the compounds with the stronger effect on GABA neurons is THC. Got it. Crushed it. THC binds in both CB1 and CB2 receptors, activating them just like an endocannabinoid. CBN has approximately 1/10 the psychoactive effects of THC. So 100 milligrams of CBN equals 10 milligrams of THC. Blank are aromatic oils that give cannabis its smell. That would be terpenes. The enzyme that breaks down anandamide is called FAAH. There may be a common blank within the human body for both cannabinoids and terpenes. Receptor. CBD at 30 to 50 micrometers kills sebocyte cells. And CBD's topical ability means it can be applied directly to the skin. So according to this conversation with ChatGPT, in the event that you are exposed to THC in the air that you don't want to be exposed to, CBD oil on the skin could be an effective way to mitigate the effects. This reduces GABA release, not what I was just referring to. This reduces GABA release, which disinhibits blank neurons, increasing blank output. That's the biochemical root of the cannabis high. What the fuck? Dopamine is the answer. Oh, I put the answer in the tags. Wait, what just happened? Black pepper is high in monoterpenes, pinene, and limonene. Does black pepper Does black pepper reduce the effects of THC?
A bit, yes. Black pepper contains beta-caryophyllene, which can bind to CB2 receptors and may calm anxiety or paranoia from THC. It doesn't truly neutralize THC, but it can take the edge off for some people.
But it's not going to do anything to protect the working memory from the effects of THC.
Right? It may ease anxiety or panic, but it won't prevent THC's impact on the hippocampus or working memory.
I need to go get some fish and steam it and cover it in lots of black pepper. Again, as part of a science experiment. When you separate the male and female plants, the females can't be pollinated, so they produce lots of THC. Cannabinol can reflect the of your cannabis, the age. Anandamide helps regulate mood, memory, appetite, pain, and other functions. Wow, we've seen that one a lot. The main function of GABA in the brain is to inhibit neural activity. So THC deactivates GABA, and then your brain goes like a firework. There are over blank known terpenes in cannabis. 200. There are over 200 known terpenes in cannabis. The 2016 study found that marijuana may reduce the ability for women to blank during the menstrual cycle. I'm going to say something misogynistic, definitely. Nope, couldn't think of anything. Never mind. Release eggs. What? No wonder. No wonder these potheads can't get preggers. Terpenes and terpenoids can be classified according to the number of isoprene units used. Anandamide is broken down quickly by the enzyme, which makes its effects short-lived. FAAH. Only a percent of the CBD that you consume will make it into your bloodstream and take effect. This percent is known as bioavailability, of course. The primary substances able to tame the paranoia, including aspects of THC, paranoia-inducing aspects of THC, are terpenes and CBD. Neurons that release GABA are called GABAergic neurons. Neurons that release GABA are called GABAergic neurons. Between THC and CBD, the compound with the stronger effect on GABA neurons is THC by 1,000,000 miles. We consider 10 milligrams to be a unit or dose of THC. The most common terpene blank is present in 8 of 10 strains. Beta-carophyllin or carophyllin. THC and CBD don't both block anandamide in the same way. Instead, THC activates the same receptors as anandamide normally activates. That's enough of that question. When the plant develops THC, okay, that's enough of this. That's it. We have learned as much about marijuana as we can learn for one day. This is the longest I've ever seen Mo go without taking a hit of keyboard duster. Oh, all right. Well, I guess I'm gonna do something else now because I'm too retarded to make sense of any of this nonsense. It is raining. It's raining outside. So, is it raining outside? Let's find out. Oh, it's definitely a very drizzly. It's a very drizzly Irish kind of a day. It's the day that I'm genetically predisposed to handle well. Okay. Anyways, now that I'm too dumb to function, let's review. What were the things that I was worried about forgetting? I forgot. So one is my list of questions. My list of questions for SEO agencies, which I will read now in its entirety. Each agency is unique. Each agency has a story. Each agency does one thing that is the thing that they are best at. Each agency has one current problem, which is the biggest problem they are currently facing. So for any particular agency, what makes them tick? If the answer is the founder, what makes the founder tick? What makes this agency unique? What's their biggest problem in the world right now? What process brought the team together? Who on the team is on their way up? Who on the team is on their way down? Is there money? Is their income going, their revenue? Is their revenue going up or down? Are they afraid of AI induced change, or do they see it as an opportunity? Who is their biggest client? What does their client onboarding process look like? What's their biggest success story? Who's their star performer? What's the worst client they have ever had? And did the worst client that they've ever had impact how the agency is run? How is the agency run? Whose job is it to close deals? What is the biggest missed opportunity this agency has ever experienced? How do they deal with unrealistic expectations from prospects and clients? What is their monthly retainer? How do they market their services? I just want to add, like, not only what is their monthly retainer, but like, what is the percentage breakdown between how much they make from monthly retainer versus how much they make from uh, like one-off fees projects?
How much do they spend on paid ads? How much email marketing do they do? How do you gauge how much you will do for a client versus how much you charge them? Where do they stand on the cheap to expensive spectrum? What percent of their clients are local? Do they always use WordPress? How do they recruit, hire, and evaluate employees? How often do they fire clients? How many leads do they get per month? What CRM do they use? Who follows up on the leads? What is their monthly cost breakdown? What SEO companies are public? That is not a question for an SEO agency. That's a question for me. It's a question for ChatGPT. What SEO agencies are public?
Here are a few publicly traded companies related to SEO digital marketing services. Though note, few are pure SEO agency models. Many are broader digital marketing tech firms. 1. SEMrush Holdings Inc., ticker SEMAR, US-based SaaS platform for SEO, keyword research, backlink tracking, etc. WeBuyCo 2, QuinStreet Inc., US digital marketing lead generation company, publicly traded. WeBuyCo 3, Brand24 SA, Polish publicly traded company, WSE, offering media monitoring plus digital marketing intelligence related to SEO online visibility space. WeBuyCo. If you like, I can check a fuller list of publicly traded SEO digital marketing agency companies with tickers, regions, size, and send you 10, 20 options.
WeBuyCo. That's apparently Wikipedia. What was the gross revenue of QuinStreet Incorporated for 2024? $600 million. Damn. What was the gross revenue for Google in 2024? Oh, it just pops up with a chart immediately. That's crazy. Wait, this is their stock price? I don't care. I didn't ask about the stock. I asked about the gross revenue. $350 billion. 300. $350 billion. Is QuinStreet Incorporated? Is QuinStreet Incorporated the largest SEO company in the world by revenue? Which digital marketing groups generate more than $1 billion in revenue annually? That's wild.
Here are several major global digital marketing agency holding groups that generate well over $1 billion annually. WPP PLC UK, reported about 4.8 billion pound revenue in 23, US 18 to 19 billion. WPP.com. Publicis Group SA, France, reported net revenue for full year 2023 around 13.97 billion, US 15 to 16 billion. Freedom24.com, Interpublic Group of Companies in USA, reported total 2023 revenue about US $10.9 billion. Investors.interpublic.com, Omnicom Group Inc., USA, reported revenue in that same large holding space in the US of roughly US $14.7 billion for 2023. Axios. If you like, I can pull together a fuller list of 10 to 20 such agencies, both public and private, along with their latest revenue figures.
That shit wild. So all of these companies that you referred to above are all private? Man, I asked what is the biggest, did I not ask what is the largest public company? And then it was like, and then it talked about Quinn Street. I don't know.
Actually, all four of the major groups listed above are publicly traded, not private. Exactly. Adderall boosts dopamine and norepinephrine in the prefrontal cortex, improving focus and working memory there. But it can't stop THC from suppressing hippocampal signaling through CB1 receptors, so memory formation and recall still take a hit.
So there you go. That is the whole. What the fuck?
Exactly. Adderall boosts dopamine and norepinephrine in the prefrontal cortex, improving focus and working memory there. But it can't stop THC from suppressing hippocampal signaling through CB1 receptors, so memory formation and recall still take a hit.
So this to me like perfectly explains why like I just make demo after demo after demo, because I have like a lot of motivation to do things, but I can't actually like think through logically how to do them, because I don't have good working memory, because my hippocampus is being impaired by THC haze in the air. So but if I'm just repeatedly doing things and learning in that fashion, it doesn't really matter. Like I don't need to have the memory of it. Like let me think about this. Is there a difference between the type of learning that occurs when your hippocampus is laying down new memories versus the type that occurs over a longer term of doing the same activity repeatedly?
Yes, the hippocampus handles short term and episodic learning, like new facts or experiences. Long term, repeated practice shifts learning to the cortex and basal ganglia, where skills become automatic and less dependent on the hippocampus.
So if you're engaged in an activity that only requires your cortex and basal ganglia because you have long-term automatic style learning of it, then not only would marijuana not impair your ability to do that activity, but the flood of dopamine could make you better at it.
That's mostly right. If the task is well practiced and automatic, THC's hippocampal effects matter less, and the dopamine boost might even enhance flow or creativity. But fine motor control and reaction time can still suffer, so it depends on the activity.
My fine motor control is actually better with THC. And when I'm sober, my handwriting is absolutely terrible. Does that indicate an overabundance of GABA?
Not necessarily. More likely, THC relaxes you and reduces performance anxiety or muscle tension, letting movements flow more smoothly. That doesn't mean you have excess GABA. It just means your coordination improves when you're less tense.
Well, what would be reducing performance anxiety and muscle tension if it wasn't for the reduction in the GABA?
Good question. THC actually increases GABA activity indirectly by activating CB1 receptors on inhibitory neurons, which quiets stress circuits. So, yes, GABA is involved, but it's not because you have too much of it overall. It's just being modulated differently in the moment.
But then, if in my sober state of mind, my fine motor control is terrible and my handwriting is terrible, then wouldn't that indicate an overabundance of GABA?
Not really. If anything, poor fine motor control when sober usually points to too little coordination or dopamine, not excess GABA. High GABA causes sedation, not clumsiness. Your handwriting issue is probably about motor planning, attention, or tension, not baseline GABA levels.
So it's probably the increased dopamine that allows for my fine motor skills to improve while under the effects of THC.
Exactly. The dopamine boost likely helps you focus and smooth out movements, while the relaxation from THC reduces overcontrol or stiffness. That combo can make your fine motor skills feel more fluid.
True. Did he just say that the Black Panthers are COINTELPRO? Damn, man. That is some counter revolutionary shit. I thought this was Laugh Riot, not Laugh Counter Revolution. Wait, what just happened? What did he say? Oh, I swear to God, in my head, I thought he was saying Tupac. I was like, how did Tupac become? No, but when people get to a certain level of fame, like the Tupac, or not Tupac, like, yeah, like the Snoop Dogg level of fame, they just swap them out for somebody else. So that's not even Snoop Dogg talking. The original Snoop Dogg has been gone for a long time. Wait. So Sean was like trying to tee Mo up to say his favorite line, and then Mo like just like went on to a different topic. Or I mean, I don't know. I guess there's no way that Mo could say his line because Sean said that is the line. People change, you know. It's like I used to make transgender jokes, but people change. Good idea. Great idea. All right, I need to stop this. I'll probably be back.